All right, hey everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe, and welcome to the Ed O'Keefe Show. I'm here with one of my favorite people, and we've never even met face to face, which is great. But we speak weekly. It's Travis Sago, and well, first of all, Travis, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I know you you say no. I think you said I know you just were on Ryan Moran's podcast. And you made an exception there, and then
I must have been in the mood because I haven't done. I've been just saying no to. Not that I think there, anything wrong with it, but I say no a lot. But I did Ryan Moran's and then yours, but I probably won't be doing another one for a while. So
yeah, which is part of I think part of the reason why. Well, first of all, I appreciate that, and second of all, I think. We're going to talk a little bit about how you really keep things so simple. And so let me share with everybody just briefly a little about Travis, just so you have context properly. So I'm in one of Travis's masterminds with Ron Lynch and Jordan Hall as the mentors. It's called The Castle, and it's really an amazing group. Where Travis, Jordan, and Ron are really teaching a model that I'm going to give you credit for, Travis, and you can disperse it on how this is my perception. I've been following Travis now for a few years, and finally, about a year ago, I reached out to him when I was going through a transition of shutting down one company and trying to navigate what I wanted to do in my life as far as how do I take all these skills I built, create value for people. But more importantly, too, I think the reality is how do you make money in the simplest form that's in alignment with what I enjoy doing? And finally, I think I called you up, Travis, and I was like, hey, man, I don't even really know what you do. I've been watching your videos. I think your stuff's amazing. You seem to have a great way of teaching. And so I would just give a preview to everybody that where Travis has taught me more about identifying undervalued assets in other people's businesses, which we'll talk a little bit about, and then how to sell $2,000, $5,000 up to $60,000 packages, services, products, coaching clubs. You name it, it goes across the board. And how to buy land, how to sell land without ever getting on the phone with people, or for the most part, and you get to do you want to. So I think you're in a big treat if you stick with us, because I have a lot of really good questions. And I think Travis is probably one of the most humble guys you'll meet, that people kind of think overlook your simplicity at times and just go for the complicated. So anyhow, welcome, man. I don't know where to start after that intro, but I'll let you kind of elaborate on it, I guess.
I know, right? I appreciate it. And I love that you're a family man and super focused on family. And I love seeing all your coaching pictures and everything. That's kind of like in my world. I usually look at somebody's profile and tell if they, probably close to Planet Mojo, just looking at their profiles. Like they're more interested in running a really simple business. Yeah. Making sure it's going to be here long term, because we got braces to put on kids, and college education's the fun, retirement's the fun. So we're kind of more interested in, hey, is our business still going to be here 10, 15, 20 years down the road, right? Or we just kind of be constantly changing businesses every 6 months or 3 months or 3 years or whatever,
Well, it's actually funny, and the we'll get into some specifics, and we have so much to talk about. But one of the things I've said to my wife, who you haven't met yet, Nola, and I haven't met Jeannie yet, so it's we'll have to make that happen eventually here. But one of the things I said to my wife, I was like, if I ever die, or when I die, I'm going to die eventually. But I go if I was ever if something unfortunately sudden happened, the model that Travis is teaching me and has built out is literally something I could take my 17-year-old kid and say, hey, here's dad's Rolodex, right? And they don't need dad's Rolodex, but it does help. Yep. Here's all my contacts and friends. This is how you reach out to them, and this is what service we're going to provide, and this is how we make money together. And it's just a triple win. Everybody wins. And so I think you've built probably the simplest model. on that. And I mean, would you agree with that statement? So you're like, you're in my will, you don't even know it,
I'm high on my own supply, man. Like, so obviously, but I didn't start out that way. Like, I complicated the crap out of everything, out of life, like I think most humans do, right? And I don't want to go into a big long story, but like a lot of stuff, a lot of the breakthroughs that you have come out of times of turmoil, right? So in the late 90s, I'd crashed a business. About 6 months prior, I'd quit my job. Jeannie said, "Oh yeah," like I sat down with Jeannie. I thought she would never go for it, right? But I quit my job, and I said, "Hey, I want to buy surplus stuff from manufacturers, and then I want to sell it to like the dollar store and everything." Unfortunately, this was just prior to eBay, right, or a little bit before eBay, and I didn't really know. So if the timing was a little bit better, I probably would have done better at this. But yeah, I had no problem getting inventory, but then I didn't know how to sell it. Like, I just didn't know, like, if I would have been eBay, I probably could have sold it really, really easily, right? So burnt through my savings and everything we had. So I'm sitting there. I said I was going to tell a long story. I'll try to keep it short. But I'm sitting there a few days after December 1st. I know it was after December 1st. I'm watching the snow come down. But I know it's after December 1st because I was late on my rent. And I was looking at the Christmas tree. We had a window by the Christmas tree, and there's snow coming down. There was absolutely no damn presents underneath the Christmas tree. I was late on the rent. I'm like, holy crap. I dug myself in this hole so freaking deep that I didn't even have time to get a job, dude.
Now, hey, Travis, did you have any kids? I mean, just context-wise, did you have any kids at the time?
Yeah, I had one son, right? So he was 8 years old, 9 years old at the time, right? No Christmas trees. I had no money to buy the Christmas trees. If I had any money, I probably wouldn't have gone to pay the rent, right? So, like, how does that make you feel like a dad? It's like good dad. It's like, holy crap.
Inadequate, failure, loser. And I only can. The only reason I can say those words is because I can relate to that.
Yeah, and so I had to figure out something quick, right? And again, I didn't even have time to get a job because I already got a job, on December 3rd. Still a 2-week holdback. That's like December 17th. I might have gotten a check, from our car because we would have gotten kicked out of the apartment, but I didn't have time. I'd like, what the frick could I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
to put this together. Right. And I'll chop out some of the story, how I came up with this. But what I ended up doing was in an afternoon, I started calling all the offices in town and getting their fax numbers, right? And just said, hey, would you like to get the daily lunch specials from the restaurants here in town, right? So I put together like 50 or 75 offices that wanted to get lunch specials from there, right? And I was so broke, I had to get the trial version of Microsoft Publisher to put together basically a minimum viable product, right? Just to kind of show the restaurant. So, but basically I built a quote unquote distribution network, right, of fax machines. I strung fax machines together. And I just went out and sold access to the restaurant. So I remember my first meeting, the first meeting was Mike Brady, just like the Brady Bunch here at Brangus Restaurant. They're still open.
Wow.
And I called him up and I didn't know he didn't know me. I didn't know him. I said, hey, I had a crazy idea. Like, what if we sent your lunches and menu to all the offices here in town? Like, would you be open to that? He's like, yeah, come on down. Right. Like, so I'm like, woo, right. So I get there and I show him, like I said, where are you spending your money at now to get more customers? He's like, well, radio ads and newspaper and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, how is that working? He's like, it's not working very well. I'm like, why do you think that is? Well, it's so expensive. You got to advertise to everybody. I'm like, and this is where my big ears really helped out. He's like, what I really want is just more people. I want more carry out orders. Why carry out orders? Well, because like they'll order 10, 20, 30, 40 lunches at a time. Right. Yeah. And they just come in and pick them up. Right. There's no, people coming in onesie, twosie, right. Just take up a table and it's not as profitable. Right. And I'm like, where do your big orders come from? And he started naming off a few offices here. And well, it's lunchtime at this insurance office and that, real estate office and this. I'm like, So I showed him my list. I'm like, are all these here? And he's like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm like, well, the good news is, like, if you would like all that, we could do it really, really cheap for you. Bad news is it's going to look ugly as crap because it's just black and white facts, but just want to get some people, to call you. Right. And he's like, and here, I'll never forget that. He's like, how much for 6 months? And I was just going to try it for a month for like, like $160 or something,
Yeah.
And so I stammered around real quick, like, well, let's do it for $700. Right. And so I gave him a discount off 6 months times 160. Right. And he's like, let me write you a check. I was like, holy fuck. And that was the best $700 I ever freaking had, man. Like, still to this day. Right. But it was a huge turning point because a lot of my business now is still based off that model. I didn't quite understand what
you were doing.
I did and what happened. Right. Yeah. But we can kind of use this in context. I'll shut up here in a second and let you fill in the details. But
priceless in so many levels. Yeah, totally.
Every single business, I don't care how complicated it seems or how simple it is, but you have a supply of something, you do some shit to it, and you sell it to somebody else, right? In this case, I had a supply of fax machines, right? I send out ads, right? And I'm going to sell that access to Mike Brady over at Brangus, right? If we're buying widgets from China, right, we're buying them cheap, buying them bulk, shipping over here, right, putting them up on Amazon, putting them in Flow, right? That's the somebody else, right? So another way I look at this is you have a product, you have a parade, and you have a processes in between. That's it. That's all you got, right? Now, here's what screws most of us up for most of our lives. We think we have to create all of those things.
Yeah. Actually, I'm writing that down. And I knew you were going to say that. And the only reason I knew you were going to say that is because I've been in your mentor. I've been being mentored by you for 10. Yeah. Which I'm just going to, while he's going to drink there, I mean, I'll just share with everybody, like, that was probably the biggest, I'm kind of identifying one of the biggest breakthroughs that I ever had. I always believed that when I started a new business or did something new, I had to, like, create the product, identify the market, write the sales copy, build all the things. And where the complexity in my life kind of where I had to, like, step back from the complexity, which hopefully people are really getting this in the sense that is Travis was the first one to be like, yeah, I'm so glad you can do all that. He's like, I'm just like, or I was just like him in the sense that, like, I felt like because I could do it meant I had to go do it. And I was making my own life way more freaking difficult because there's people that already have products. There's already a parade. Some people already have the parade, but they might be missing an extra process, which we can talk a little bit about that. And so also too, Travis, I think one of the things, I don't know why you went to that specific lunch place. Is that where you went to lunch just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I like it. I was familiar with it, right? They throw peanuts on the ground, right? It was like, I was going to call everybody until I had enough appointments set up. Long story short on that is, like, my biggest problem, and this fax advertising worked so well that he had to install second phone lines in there. This was before, like, all the call waiting and shit, right? But my biggest problem is I couldn't send more than 2 fax pages a day because the offices would start getting mad, right? Yeah. So I had all the spots filled up, right? And that became my capacity issue as I was doing solo spots, right?
Yeah.
But then I started to get it on some level, right? And so there was one day I was waiting. One afternoon I was waiting till lunch rush was over because I had to go in and collect a bill from a barbecue restaurant. His name was Bob Manson, and I remember that because Charles Manson, right? He's retired now, but Old Post Barbecue.
Hard to forget that name, totally.
Yeah, but I'm watching all the cars go by the drive-through, right? I'm just sitting there waiting for it to slow down so I can go ahead and collect my money for the advertising, right? But I'm watching all the cars drive by the drive-through. This is super important. This is a big breakthrough in my life, right? So this is a parade. There's a parade of customers, right, going by this window. And one of the things I noticed is they're putting carryout menus in each of those bags, right? They're putting carryout. They hand them a bag. They put a carryout menu and they hand them a bag, right? And so, like, each one of those people are going there, and then they're getting this menu, right? And at the time, this was just about when affiliate marketing started coming around, right? And I was a Dish Network affiliate through a company called VMC Satellite, was their affiliate arm of it, right? And they would pay me like 100, 120 bucks, depending on what my volume was, if somebody signed up for Dish Network, which was a big, big thing here, because at the time, like, I live in Russellville, Arkansas, so you couldn't get like cable on a lot of the rural places, right? So you're still stuck with rabbit ears and the three stations, right? ABC, CBS, and NBC, right? So when satellite came around, it was a big thing because now you get all the stations, right? But I was like, how do I? And I was selling a little bit, right? Just like on the web, but this back in dial-up time. But I'm like, how can I? But and these people were perfect for that. So I'm like, you know what? I knew Bob, and Bob, like, he doesn't care about making money, but he cares about saving money. This is a big, big tip for most business owners. They care more about saving money, especially brick and mortar, than they do about making money, right? So when I went into collect the money from him, I'm like, I noticed you give out carry-out menus for each one of those bags. How would you like me to print all those for you at no charge? And he's a smart dude. He's like, what's the catch? I'm like, and they fold them in trifolds, right? I'm like, I just want to put an ad on the back. Like, it's blank back here. I just want to put an ad on the back, right? And I was real familiar with this menu because I use it in my advertising, right? I just want to put an ad on the back, right? The back trifold. And so I put my Dish Network ad on there, which they would just call an 800 number. And they would always have an extension, and that extension was my affiliate number, right? Yeah. So he's like, cool, have at it. So I went down to the print house, and I don't remember the exact cost, but I had like 5,000 menus printed up for like 250 bucks, I think. And like, how can I go wrong with that? I'm getting paid 100 bucks.
Yeah.
He started handing those out in the bag, and he's happy as clam, right? He gets to save 250 bucks, gets his menus for free, right? I get to ride along on his distribution. I don't have to provide any of the product, right? The parade's doing the work. I just had to go out and get the damn menus printed up and put in there. Ed, there were days, I swear to God, I was probably making more money doing that than he was running the restaurant.
Wow.
I mean, we're just a little town, right? He's probably doing $1 million a year out of that restaurant, but restaurants like 10%, 15% profit, right? So
yeah.
I was making, some days, like at the height of it, I was making $500-600 a day.
Yeah.
On that. So then I started doing that in pizza places, right? All the mom and not the Domino's and but the mom and pop place called Pizza Pro out here, and some of the mom and pop. So I print up their menus and stuff. I just ride the distribution for free, right? Wow. And so what I do now is very similar to that. It's just online, and I do it with really big ticket stuff. And I only work with customer lists, right? But it's still the same. It's still the same principles, right? These people buy a $47 book, right? And then email goes out and says, hey, would you like to do this $2,000 thing too? Or thank you so much. I'd like to do this $2,000 thing too. Then I have my, we call them tappers, right? My virtual salesperson tap that sale in, because the Bob Manses don't want to hire a salesperson, and they don't want to pay for emails, right? So I just handle all that for them. I'm like, hey, let me write the emails. Let me manage the team, everything. You just pay me only if we make any sales, right? So it's very, very similar to what I do now. We just do it with like, $20,000 to $60,000 thing, or anywhere from $2,000 to $60,000 things, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the greatest operations dude, right? So I don't have to worry about my masterminds getting too full, or do I have the operations? I have to do what I do best, right? Which is just come up with we call them hand raisers, right? Get people to raise their hands, find out what they want, and then make an offer to them, right? And they either buy or they don't buy. That's it. I fund everything, right? Yeah. Just like the menus. I like direct mail because, again, I'll make sure that my business is still here 20 years from now, right? Yeah. So I mainly focus on direct mail, email, and sometimes Facebook groups. But
yeah. Well, you just gave your entire model in like 30 seconds or less, and so there's so many There's so many things there. I think what I want to back up on, I love this, by the way, and there should be a lot of questions going on. Like, number one is if I think the genius is when you talk about products, like, in Parade, is you're looking at what you I don't know if you've coined this term, but the term trash can assets.
Like, I don't know. I'm
going to give you credit because it's my show. I have the authority to do so for now, and someone else can. But the idea is, like, what is sitting there that they're ignoring or that they'll never do, and there's a whole profit center. Because what you even mentioned about the drive-through guy, but you making more money than he's doing. Most businesses are so busy doing their business that they don't see that their real profit center, where they might be making all their money and take home money, pay all their college funds for their kids, or do whatever they want to do, is actually just sitting a 10 degree. If they, I think you like to say, like, pointing the flashlight over here, like, what are you doing over here? Oh, wow. So you've applied that to many. You're doing that in the coaching business, but also you're applying that to land. Like, can you just give us your high level concept about, like, undervalued assets, trash can assets, and how you like to think about that?
Yeah, I think just to make this useful for everybody, whether you're a business owner or you're looking to do this for other people, it says, I applied this to my own business, right? So we want to look at what assets do we have? What will we never do, right, that we could get somebody else to do if we just paid him on a performance basis, or just figured out, like, what else? What if Bob Manson had done that, right? He didn't know, right? And he didn't really care. But, like, if he knew how much money I was making off that, like, I was, and that's Marilyn Monroe money, right? That's just money he would have had off the top if he would have been doing it, right? But he's never going to do it because, one, he isn't. He runs a barbecue place, right? He's just never going to do it, right? But if you were Bob, like, what other things? What could you do to have other people do that? So when I made a lot of money in the info publishing business, in the dating space, right? But I realized that, like, I could tap into distribution networks and make them my affiliates, right? So when I would send out, like, a piece of content or a piece of video, right, to my affiliates, I'd be on like 100 blogs in, like, hours sometimes, right? But there's no way I was going to be able to figure out Facebook ads and Google ads and blogging and SEO and all that stuff, right? There's just no way. And I was running on radio. I had some radio ads going. I would just go to the radio stations. As a really good example going into what you're talking about. But so radio stations have unused spots, and if they don't use them, right, they usually run public service ads. So I would just go to these radio stations and I'd say, look, I've got this product. It's mass market, right? It's on how to fix your relationship, right? If you guys want to run those spots, once upon I was given 100% commission. I'll give you like 75% commission. They loved it. Like, that's awesome, right? And I'd give them the stuff, right? Because they weren't doing anything with it. So you can use it in your own. Like, if you're not doing this, you could route all this energy and flow back to your own business just by cutting these deals, if that makes sense, right? But yeah, I'm looking for something that they're not going to do, or they're never going to do, right? And I like to say this, but every successful business owner knows there's 1,001 things they could do to be super successful, but they only have time for 3.
Yep, 100%.
Right? They only have time for 3, right? So that leaves all these other things open, right? That either, if you're running a business, you can put somebody else in charge of that profit center, if you want to call it, right? Those things. Or if you want to tap into somebody else's business to bring flow to you, like to tap into the river and then bring that flow to your business, to your pond, to your lake, right? You could do that as well, if that makes sense. I'm mixing a lot of metaphors, so hopefully it's not getting too confusing.
Yeah, well, I think, like, some of the obvious stuff, though, is I'll just give everybody an example of how I applied what Travis is teaching. Is one of my good friends was running a challenge, right? And he was selling a $7,000 package on the back end of it. And Travis teaches a simple system of like, well, hey, like most people after they do challenges or book buyers, they usually have a webinar. They usually have a phone team that calls them for like, 7 days. And then they kind of go into a bucket where they're just kind of ignored or they just get spammed. And so I said to my friend, I'm like, well, hey, would you be open to me just, or what are you doing with them? And kind of very similar, like Travis saying like, hey, on the back of your menu or on the back of the bag, like, would we be open to using that space? Would you be open to me just direct mailing those challenge buyers? I'll fund it. I'll sell everybody and I'll just send you customers. And, I come in as an investor using Travis's languaging. And so I'll be funding everything. So here's the split that I'd be would like to work with. And we did it. I think I spent around $2,600 in direct mail costs, wrote the copy, which is something Travis taught me. That's something super simple, way simpler than like what I would do as a copywriter. I would make it way more difficult. Yeah. And we generated, I think, around $65,000 from that small list of like 1,000 buyers. And I mean, where else can you do that type of return on investment? And
dude, I'm ambivalent about telling people sometimes because like it's almost ridiculous, right? And if you start using pearls and stuff, like
pearl postcards, just where it's a personal,
personal URLs, like you almost can't not make money with it, like especially if you're mailing the customers, right? And then they hit a website, and then who's hit that website. You don't have to mail to them, right? So if you're mailing like a $20,000 offer, let's say you mail it out to 1,000 customers, right? Let's say you get a 6% response, hit the website, so that's 60 people, right? You don't have to keep mailing 1,000, mail those 60. Well, at $20,000 a pop, if you're getting 30 to 50% commission on that, right? You can mail those 60 people a lot of freaking times.
Yeah.
Right? You can follow up a lot with that, right? So like it's almost like I'm ambivalent sometimes knowing about how much to talk about it, right? But I think really what's going to happen is like people just aren't going to do it, right? They're not going to take the risk. They're not going to write the letters. They're not going to put the postage out. They don't want to learn all that, right? Just easier to hire somebody like you or me, right, to come in and fund it all for them, right, and work out a revenue share percentage that makes sense for everybody.
Well, and so just so everyone understands too, like why I feel like this business model is something either every business. So I'll give you a quick example. So a few years ago, I was running seminars, we had a book out, and then, I'm in a new transition where I'm starting to get clarity on what I want to do with my life. And I wanted to start doing workshops again, like every 90 days. And that's coming to form, and selling the lead arbitrage, lead selling business is picking up momentum. And doing the cold reach outs that you teach. I mean, I want to talk briefly about that in a minute, because you've taken that and made it so simple. But there's no better way than to reactivate my re-engage with my past customers by sending them a thank you note and just letting them know what's up, and getting them back in my world, because keep it simple. And here's the biggest thing that most people don't get is, Ed, that's so simple, but here's the reality. Nobody is doing it.
Dude, it's the biggest freaking hack right now. Yeah. Like, I could go with example after example, but this just came up last night. So I have a girl that helps martial arts schools get more students, right? So what do you think most martial arts, how do you think they normally get students to fill the class? Just left to their own devices, how do they get students into their class? Even if they're super aggressive.
If they're super aggressive?
Yeah.
Yeah, like free classes is what.
Yeah, free classes, Facebook ads, running free classes, right? It's basically
type thing. Yeah.
It's basically new leads, right?
Yeah.
What does she do? She sends emails out to their people that are already members and just sells them a package.
Yeah.
Right. And she says, we do 10 grand to 80 grand. Pure money. It's like the easiest money right there, right? And almost no business does that. And it's not because they're stupid. It's just they're so focused on the new, right?
Yeah.
They're so like what movie? Oh, it's Facebook. Oh, TikTok now, right? And all these other things just seem like slow and boring and but slow and boring is where the money is, man. Like there's a reason why Jeff Bezos started with books, right? He's like, I know books will still be here
Yeah.
20 years down the road, right? So he built the business off of books and built that distribution off books first, right? And then he branched out from that, right?
Now, when I used to work with dentists, the statistic was, your existing customer base is 80% more likely to buy more and 16 times higher return on investment. When we were talking almost a year ago, it's coming up on that. One of the key distinctions you made for me was, Ed, you're doing everything I've done. The distinction is you're still focusing on doing new prospects, new offers, where I only deal with customers. Do you mind talking a little bit about that and where that shift happened in your life? Because
well, I always say I trick people into thinking I'm smart. I just I have experience and go through the hard way, right? But I think once I learn a lesson, I'm pretty good at sticking to it, right? But I did the same thing when I started my quote unquote agency, right? Which I call it a firm now because I just invest everything, right? But I did the same thing. I went to prospects. I sold whatever they were excited about, which is always their new product, right? Their new thing, right? Yep. And I did pretty good at it, but man, it was a lot of damn work, right? Yep. And because anytime you have a new offer, now you have to get the new offer dialed in, and it's prospects who are, if you liken this to a golf course, they're not even on the green. A lot of these guys, they're way off on the tee, right? So like what I realized is I get paid just the same amount. Like if the ball's 2 inches from the hole, or if it's 200 yards from the hole, why don't I just start closer to the hole? Now, what stopped me from doing it was I call it little Travis on my shoulder. Said, oh, well, they're doing something with their customer lists.
Yeah.
Right. So I started seeing the back ends of these things. I realized that they were not sending anything out to their customer list. Right. I'm like, hey, you've got this program that sells pretty well to the prospect. What if you haven't offered it to these customers? What if we offered it to these guys? Right. They're like, yeah, have at it. Holy crap. Like it was nuts, man. Like, so, then I'm just like, cause I say no a lot. What can I say no to? Like old 80-20 rule. I think it's really 95-5, like 95% of the stuff that we're doing don't make a crap. Right. So figure out that 5%. So why don't I just say no to all the prospect stuff and just focus on the customers. Right. Now, scarcity Travis tries to come and say, oh, there'll never be enough people, right, to do that. And it's completely not the case. Most people do not do anything with their customers. And if they do, it's like happenstance, right? Most people are focused on what's the hot thing right now. TikTok ads. Oh, Facebook ads. Oh, what's the latest and greatest thing to bring in new customers? There's a lot of reasons for it. We could probably spend 3 episodes on that, but it doesn't really matter. It just matters if you know that most people have big fat customer lists they don't do anything with. And if that's your business, right, you might want to do something. Like if you don't have time to do it, bring somebody in that will handle that stuff for you, whether you're selling your own thing or somebody else's thing on that, right? Yeah. But that's kind of where I got to. I'm like, I had all this story in my head, and I said, hey, I noticed we're not doing anything with this 10,000 customers. They've all bought $500 things from you, right? What if I funded a campaign for that? Like, have at it. Holy crap. Like, I was like, surely this was going to be like a bigger thing to get a yes to than prospect this. And maybe slightly. And the reason is like, if you're doing this, like there's a lot of people that have more prospects than customers, but there's a lot of great companies that have customer databases that just aren't doing a lot with them, right? Huge opportunity right now in the SaaS space, right? Think about churn. Think about like the company that's putting in 100,000 people a year, right? Yeah. They got a churn rate of, 10%. That's 10,000 people a year that aren't buying from them anymore, right? You could either reactivate. My favorite thing is to sell them what we've already sold them, to reactivate them, but then you can find other opportunities too. Because nobody's buying SaaS. They're buying whatever the SaaS does for them, right?
Yeah.
Like in my land business, I'm not buying software. I'm buying getting more deals, right? Or getting more buyers, right? So if I understand that, then I can offer more things, right, to that, either courses or classes or more tools that will help those kind of things. Regardless, right? If the SaaS, I mean, I would take those offers. Like the SaaS company was only offer them to me, but they don't, right? Because they sell what they think is they sell. Oh, we sell data, right? We'll just sell them some more data. We'll just sell them data. It's a good business model. I keep buying data from them, right? So it's a consumable. It's like we go in and we keep buying barbecue sandwiches, right? But there's other things. we take those barbecue sandwiches home and we want to watch our sports game. But we live so far out, right? We don't get cable, right? We got to like deal with all the staticky and move the antenna ears around and all those kind of things, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you mentioned from the get-go, your first story, that so I'm currently you spend a lot of time selling leads of buyers in the tactical and health space. And so what's interesting is I'm having, like you like to use the term coffee dates. I'm having more coffee dates than I've ever had. And for everyone who's watching or listening, what that means is I'm just on the phone with business owners listening to, hey, how many leads do you want? What are you trying to sell? What else do you got going on? What's your value per lead? I'm asking a lot of questions. And Travis, I mean, we'll talk about this on the Castle today because I'm going to bring this up. What I'm realizing is there's like 6 profit centers that are sitting here because they're sharing with me all their problems to growing. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I have a solution for each one of them, but I like listening to business owners' problems because if we can connect a kind of like you, like an electrical cord into that problem and fix it for them, whether it's preferably somebody else that we now get to go cut a deal with. We're not only transforming that business owner's life by solving the problem, but by being that by being the process, right?
Yeah.
And I think where I was going with that was that I think getting back on the phone or face to face with people that you're selling to, especially your best clients, your best customers, your best buyers, and just asking what else they need help with. I mean, if you've done a good job or you're a nice person in general, they're going to tell you what they're trying to accomplish, you know? So, I mean, that's just more of a statement than a question. So,
but it's boring, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not exciting. Right. And that's cool. Like that's, let me be the boring guy that comes in. I'll pay for the postage and the sales team and all the copy for you, right? All you got to do is just deliver your service, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty. Whatever that thing is, it may not be direct mail, right? Whatever that thing is.
Now you've been doing a little more strategy and tactic stuff, and then maybe I'll wrap the call up with just a little bit more global thought process on just life. But you've been doing these, and this kind of goes to like these ask me anythings you're doing, right? I've tried to get 2 or 3 clients that I work with on retainer to do these. Like, hey, pick this one specific topic that's their biggest pain point. I'll help create. And here's the funny thing. They just are like, well, it's a Zoom call. It's free advice. I'm giving all this time with people. And then we're going to sell a low ticket offer to them. And we're just trying to be big tickets where it's at. And at that point, I just kind of have to give up on trying to convince people because better use of all of our times. But you've been doing some great stuff, and feel free to share the Facebook groups you're teaching some of the stuff at, because I really want people to learn from you and follow you and buy from you and become students of you. So
so I'm a tinkerer and experimenter at heart, right? And I'm usually trying to come up with simpler stuff. Like, do I really, really need this? That's usually what, like, I'm usually like, how can I take a piece out, right? Like, how can I take the salespeople out? So that's how I like.
Rid of sales reps. You got rid of sales reps.
So my experiment here was, how much does the pitch in whatever it is, whether it's an email or a webinar, or how much does the pitch really contribute to the sales, right? And my experience in theory is that, and I'm not against pitch, but my experience in theory is that if you understand what you're doing with the content, the pitch is not nearly as required as we think, right? So what I've been testing is these Ask Me Anythings where they come on, right? And I have like 9 or 10 minutes where I have a breakthrough moment with them. I give them a different perspective, a different, what I call braingasm, about the problems that they're trying to solve, right? And give them a breakthrough, right? Because the first part of the conversion process is you have to help them to have a breakthrough and get them over a little hurdle that they have, right? And then you run them up against the next challenge, right? But now you've built in that, this is great, right? But right, so just to give you an example, so I did one for cold outreach, right? So I have a very different process for cold outreach that works. Like we're mad if we don't get a 50% response rate, right? On cold outreach, right? But the shift is so completely different, right? And how most people do it, right? It doesn't occur to people to do it that way, right? But so, and I went a little bit longer on this. I just showed them how to do it, right? Gave them some of the points, right? And then I just let them ask me questions on it, right? And that's it. I had like no pitch whatsoever there, right? But what happens is some of them right on the call are like using this stuff, and they're getting people to reach out
totally
to them, right? So they're like, they're having an intellectual mind blown, and then they have an experiential mind blown, right? But what's the problem now? Like now they got people to talk to. Now what do I say? Well, that's not what the AMA is on, right? So what I was testing is like, how much does the pitch? Can I just leave the pitch out altogether? Can I just leave out the pitch and put a little blurb underneath?
Yeah.
And I just upload it to Wistia and just put the blurb in Wistia. Like these are like no pitch whatsoever. And so in my big ticket super affiliate mojo group, which if your listeners want to get on that, it's superaffiliatemojo.com. It just redirects you to that. But superaffiliatemojo.com will redirect you to my Facebook group. If there's only like 1,400 people in there. So all I did is this AMA, uploaded it to Wistia, put a blurb underneath, right? Now, the first time I did it, we did about 75 grand and collected money. No fucking pitch. What? Not even a mention of the pitch in the AMA, right? There was no like, hey, if you buy this, or hey, anything, right? I just helped them, and then I ran them up to the next challenge, right? And so that when they're watching this AMA, the replay, right, they're kind of looking at the pitch that's underneath that, right? The little blurb of, it's not even really a pitch. Just like I did 4 bonus levels, right? I said, hey, watch us, pay me whatever you think it's worth after you watch it, right? They're like, holy crap. But I set up 4 bonus levels for them, right? Tiered bonus levels. And that was all I did, right? So the first time I ran it, 1,400 people in the group, 75 grand. I think it was like $60 or $50 per view on the video. Like
that's crazy statistics.
Yeah. And so I ran it again, like 2 weeks later for another offer, did 105 grand. Now I did have a little bit of pitch, not in the video itself, but I did a little pitching inside of the Facebook group, right? So, you know, it was a little bit different offer, right? But you can still say like, oh, maybe 30 grand of that was pitch, right? I did 75 grand, but no, I never pitched the thing. In the first one, I never pitched the thing. I just teased them about what was in the
replay. Let me interrupt you. Do you mind if I interrupt you real quick? Like, but you never come across like you're pitching. You come across of like I'm in your groups, and you have just an amazing perspective. And you know, like just so everybody knows, like Travis has a masterful way of outlining his content. And just to go back one more level is like if you can, where the magic on that first part is that if you can help people solve their main problem, which is what he's teaching, like how to get a response on a cold reach out, which is what they wanted. You actually, it's like for some people that literally, including myself, it changes the direction of your entire life, because now I don't have to run Facebook ads to try to get the attention of people. Well, maybe I could just go straight to the person with a real personal, well-crafted reach out that gets a response. And I just saved a year of my life. And I also just realized, I'm like, wow, I now have a superpower that nobody else has, or very few people have. Which now then you're like, oh shit, what else is
really have the ability, if you have a cell phone and nothing else, to put deals together. Now, obviously, it's not going to make sense if you're trying to sell a $27 widget, right? But we put together, 5-figure, 6-figure deals, right? So it makes sense to just use cold. Like I said, there's 2 times when you use cold outreach: when you're brand new, right, and you'll take anybody, and also when you're so experienced that you're so selective that like you're just going to go to the people that you want to work with. Right? Does that make sense? So then you have to have a plan for like, I only want to work with these kind of, I want to work with this person. How do I make that happen? Right. Once you get to that kind of advanced level, if that makes sense. But yeah, like that's all I very often say, like, we don't use snail mail, but like, if you had to, like, you could snail mail them. I don't think there's no problem that can't be solved, I don't think, with a personal letter.
Totally right.
Sent somewhere, right? There's no fucking problem in the world that can't be solved. Maybe you need a couple of them, but there's no fucking problem in the world that can't be solved with a personal letter, right? Maybe you need to FedEx it, put it in a box, or do something, right? But
what's so funny you mentioned that is I just got introduced to somebody, a referred partner on Facebook, and the guy hasn't, like, I could see he has not seen the introduction. So obviously the next logical thing would be like, hey, Travis, do you mind like text threading us together? Like, can you, like, if you're the intro person, like, can you get me and Joe together via text? Or I don't have a cell phone. I'm like, man, but my initial thought this morning was, I got 2 intros, neither responded yet. They haven't seen it yet, which means they're busy. They're busy doing stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I was like, if I don't hear back from this guy in a day, I'm FedExing him. I'm going to go find his like corporate office. And I'm going to start FedExing him to the point where these guys can't ignore me. And, back in my dentistry days, we used to send out, $3 envelopes that like were big envelopes that got open, 20-page sales letters. Now, Travis doesn't teach a 20-page sales letter. I don't think you need to do that. But the point is we made money doing that because, what do you get when you open your mail? Just a bunch of crap. And it's like, well, if I got a letter or something personal, it's like, oh, wow, finally somebody, sent me something. But
I bought a landlocked piece of land, which is a big no-no if you're a land investor. But what landlocked means is no road access. So like, need the helo in or something, on that. So I'm like, well, shit, but there was like 5 neighbors that were attached to that land that did have road access, right? So I had 5 people that would probably want to purchase that. So what I did, literally on a Friday, I drafted up a letter and I FedExed it. It was actually UPS overnight because I don't have a FedEx here so it was actually UPS overnight. But I want it to come with some pomp and circumstance, right? But UPS overnight, this little real friendly letter said, hey, I own this land here. Since you're a neighbor, I'd like to give you the first crack at it before I put it out to the public, right? And I started getting calls on Saturday, right? I think either 3 or 4 people out of the 5. I think there was 1 or 2 people that didn't call me back immediately. I did end up talking with all of them eventually, right? Which was interesting, but I had that thing sold on Monday. I had a purchase order and sold on not sold cash in the bank, right? Because you have to go through a closing process, right? But I had the purchase agreement signed on Monday, right? Real nice older fella. I had a couple people that were like, him and hawing, like trying to work me on the price. We just came to an agreement real quick. He was buying it for his grandkids, right? Because he's like, I'm an old guy now. I'm just expanding my empire, right? It's right next to me, right? So I wasn't selling him land. I was selling him legacy, right? And so we worked out a deal and had it sold, right? But I don't think there's any damn problem you can't solve with a well-written letter to the right person, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Last, I mean, you and I can talk all day. We're going to be on a call here shortly, so I'll let you go in a minute. Gosh, what would be a good last question? I mean, I think like people should follow you. I know you like being, you don't like being famous. I almost believe you probably get more word of mouth than you get anything. Like just, like people are jumping in your groups because of the unique, I think you have a really unique perspective that shuts out a lot of not only complexity, but with the simplicity, you're not trying to overdo life. And it just allows you seem very relaxed, seem very happy. I know it's not without problems, but do you want to we'll wrap up this call in 2 minutes on kind of just, I mean, how has your life shifted in the sense that you just see the world through these lenses?
Yeah. Well, I could actually talk 2 hours on that, but I'll try to do my best to keep it short. So the big thing is that, like all my stuff is branded Mojo, right? Mojo is an energy, right? Mm-hmm. So what shifts for me is when we're kind of trained or programmed, if you're born lower to middle class, like that we are the asset, that it has to be our blood, sweat, and tears to go out there, right? And we have to trade our time and energy for money, right? What shifted for me is it's not the money, and I'm not even the source of money. All the money's out there. It's all the energies, it's all the traffic going by Bob's window right now. It's all the internet traffic. It's all the people that are getting those $37 ebooks, right, that they're purchased, or the free plus shipping and handling, that all that flow that's going out there. And all I have to do is tap into it. Right. All I have to do is tap into that. Right. So it changes everything. It changes personal finance. Right. Because this is a big breakthrough I had. I don't care how much money you have. Right. Even Warren Buffett, you take Warren Buffett's money and compared to the rest of the world, he's only got a quarter. He's got 25 cents. Right. So, a lot of entrepreneurs worry about okay, so what am I going to do with my 25 cents? How do I turn this 25 cents into 50 cents, right? How do I penny pinch all the personal finance? Should I pay off my house or should I not pay off my house? It doesn't fucking matter. It does matter if you're a truck driver, right? Or selling your time and energy, right? But when that's all the money, all the energy is out there, right? It's like if you have one thimble of water and you're trying how can I manage this thimble of water? Right. And behind you is a lake, right? You just go to the lake anytime. Yeah. So to me, all we got to do is tap into it. And there's so much of it, Ed. We can never tap into, how many customer databases are there? How many, right? There's no way, right? We only need 3 to 5 good flow sources, right? To pay for everything that we ever possibly want, right? So it kind of changes personal finance perspective and everything. I somewhat enjoy trading some options every once in a while, but it's a poor use of my time. Yeah. Right. Because I'm pretty much trying to take my quarter and turn it into 50 cents. Doesn't make any sense for me when I can just go and tap into another source and bring in another 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand a month. Once I get it set up, it just keeps coming in, right? Why am I dicking around with questions like, should I pay off my car? Should I pay off my house? I know people you can do so much more with the money, but at what point does it get ridiculous? Do you finance a stick of gum because you can make a higher percentage on it? Why not just pay off the stick of gum? Right. And I know that we're in a different paradigm here with that, right? So I'm not saying for everybody just to go blow their money in the pay off their house until you're in the paradigm where you can really understand, all you got to do is tap into all this energy, right? Whether it's bringing it back to your own business, right? getting other people to bring it back for you, right? Or you're just doing it as like a super affiliate, right? Where you're just tapping into somebody else's parade, selling their product, and all you're providing is the process, right? But it changes it. Like, that's why on my good days, I don't freak out about shit, right? I don't even really, yeah, is there inflation in the economy? Yeah. But what does that have to do? Like, are people's desires going to stop? Are there still going to be unfulfilled desires? Are there still going to be problems out there? Right? Even if there was no money, I can trade for stuff, right? If I understand
this
understand that flow, right? So
yeah. So are you stocking up on manure and mulch and wheat right now? Like Ron is.
Well, my thing is like, and again, I don't have a personal finance degree. I'm just sharing what's worked for me, right? But focus on your inflow.
Yep.
And then I tell these young bucks, like, as soon as they get a few bucks, they're just like, well, where should I invest? I'm like, don't fucking worry about it. Buy real shit, right? Go out and buy real shit. So I own land on both sides of me, right? Because I own land a lot of places. By the way, like Bill Gates, what is he buying? He's buying a shit ton of land right now, right? So buy real shit, right? And I've got gold, guns, land, because it's real shit. Not that I'm like, I can trade my guns, I can trade the gold, right? If anything happened, but the biggest thing is just my knowledge, right? If I know how to go out there and chop down trees, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay warm, right? The things might change, right? But I know how to chop down trees, right? I know how to go out there and tap into unfulfilled desire, wants, and demands. And even if I'm not fulfilling them myself, right, I can match those up, right? And so it's just a different. I don't like to look at beliefs, right? It's a different perspective. Once you get a different perspective, right? People thought the world was flat, right? And now we know it's round, but we have an experiential idea that it's round because we've pulled out so far. We just have a different perspective on the earth, right? We understand that the earth revolves around the sun, not the sun revolving around the earth, right? So it doesn't have to be about beliefs, it's just about perspective and changing that perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing I would say to add on to that is that invest in your own education to learn a process, so what I just wrote down, which I think is just awesome, write it down. I feel like I spent 6 days making things more complex. We get on the castle. Travis like, no, you guys are all screwing it up. Is that if I have a process borrowed from somebody else's experiential wisdom and I invest in that, then I can go get that 3 to 5 inflow or those flow sources where we can help, turn customers into
it's 11 o'clock
revenue and that, and then you just mentioned automating that or systematizing that, which it'll freeze you up from that, freeze you up from a lot of those other questions. Yeah. That was the big point of, who gives a shit whether you're investing in insurance that's guaranteed at 7% or 15% stock market. You have more, your return on time is so much higher. And
we can write a 5-page Google Doc and put it in the flow, right? And start making $5,000 a week.
Yeah.
Off of a freaking Google Doc, right? Yeah. That's why I love intellectual property, right? It's the most flexible, easiest to acquire, easiest to develop, clonable. Like once you have it, like I'm this martial arts girl I'm telling you about, right? Once she just clones that. She has her IP, right? And what works in Tallahassee, Florida, works in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
Right. So once you have the IP, you just take it different. So now it's like cloning a house, right? Like, what if you could take your house and just clone it and get the rent and everything without the mortgage and all? I mean, there's some management to it, right? But that's why I love IP. It's why Elvis gosh, my mind just went blank. But Elvis.
Yeah. Or Michael.
Yeah. Well, Elvis is like, he's still making passive. People say, oh, well, passive income is not that's a misnomer. It's not passive. Well, tell that to Elvis. He's been making money. He died in 1977, right? He's still bringing in money, right? Because his IP is in flow. Now, is somebody doing something with that? Absolutely, but like it's still bringing in the dough, right? With that, So I love IP because it is a process, right? And so, how do we get control? And I'll just focus on this for a second here, but like when you understand the process, you don't even need money. Like I don't even need money to buy land because I understand the process of how to acquire it for pennies on the dollar from people that don't want it anymore. And once you know how to do that, people will just come in and give you the money. Like I got people just like, hey, do you need any money? I'm like, no, I'm just funding it myself, but I'll give you the money because we're buying it. Like I bought a piece of land in Fort Smith for $15,000. Right. We sold it for 45. Right. So these guys love to come in. Right. And I'll give you the 15,000 if we can split the profits. Right. So it's a process like you were talking about. Yep. I call it a simpler, superior process. Fracking. Right. Political or not political. It changed the game in oil and gas. And it's a process of how we pull oil and gas and resources out of the ground. Right. That expanded. Like they thought the United States or the world was going to go hungry. Right. Like, oh, we're not gonna have enough land to support all the people that are eating, but they figured out new ways to farm, right, that produce a lot more food. So it's just a process. So how do you get control of $1 million assets, right? With no money, you figure out a simpler, superior process, right? And you don't have to save up for 30 years, right? In order to put it into municipal bonds. At 4% tax free, that's great, right? But it takes, 10 million, that's $400,000 a year, right? Tax free. Then now you're starting to talk a little bit, right? At that, but like, how long is it going to take you to save up $10 million?
$10 million, yeah.
Right. Where you can have a few pieces of IP, right, placed in the right rivers or the right streams.
Yeah.
And IP can be simple as a damn Google Doc, right? That's what we like to use, little Google Docs over here, right? And put that in the flow. It's like, what the heck, right?
Yeah, I love it. Hey, with that, what's the website again that people can go to get redirected to your Facebook group?
Superaffiliatemojo.com. And by the way, that cold outreach thing we were talking about, it's in there. It's in one of the sticky posts. So if you want to, like, that's in there, and also how to get easier way to get deals, rather not proposing a deal, but proposing a test, which completely changes the game, right? And people go through that and they're like, oh my God, I got people that want to work with me now, right? So both of those trainings are there. It's a fairly new group. I started it in December, but those are both in there in the sticky post, superaffiliatemojo.com.
Yeah, Travis, the best languaging is like, hey, I have a chuckle. I used to use that, I think, when talking to girls or something, that it somehow worked or something. And so now I use it in business, but it's like, I have no idea if this is going to work at all. Like, this might be the worst idea ever. And people are like, I'll go for it. Let's go. It's such an opposite way of proposing a deal.
It's refreshing. It's freaking honest, right? Like, hey, sometimes, I've sent out, letters, and we did like $20 for every dollar we invested. And then I've also completely crashed and burned. Your results will probably be somewhere. Only thing I'm saying is let me take all the financial risk on it, right? Let me take the risk on it. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great.
I love it. All right, everybody. Travis Silo, Travis, you're the best. Appreciate you. And
thanks, Ed. I appreciate you, man.
You over-delivered, and I hope everybody watching this or listening to this checks you out and follows you and stalks you and tries to guess which color T-shirt you wear that day. All right, see you, everybody.
All right, man.
Hey, it's Ed again. Hey, one last thing before you leave. First, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show. If you love this show or this episode and know someone who can benefit, please copy it and share it with them. Also, if you can do me a favor and leave a quick review wherever you listen to these podcasts the most, whether it's Apple, Spotify, etc. It really will help us get the message out to more people. That's it. Thanks again. and make it a great day.